Hey, I'm Danny, and I want to tell you what happened with my boyfriend Jason. I met Jason at a friend's party when I was 16. I couldn't help but notice how hot he was. Girls were hitting on him from every corner. But then, he came up to me and asked me to dance. Yes! The other girls looked so jealous their eyes were gonna pop out. The next day, we went out to the movies, but we didn't see much of the film. We were too busy making out in the back row, and oh my God, he was a good kisser. Jason and I started seeing each other like every day. He was so sweet, always buying me presents and sending me texts to tell me how much he loved me. Sounds like the perfect boyfriend, right? Only problem was, Jason could get really jealous. Like, there was one time we went for dinner. After the waiter took our order, Jason told me to stop flirting with him. I wasn't flirting with him. Ugh, all I did was say thank you. But that was enough to put Jason in a bad mood for the rest of the night. When Jason drove me home, I told him he was being ridiculous. "I'm sorry, baby," said Jason. "It's just, I love you so much. I can't bear the thought of you being with another dude." It was hard dealing with Jason's temper, but I really loved him, so I always forgave him. We'd been seeing each other for about 6 months when we were in the den at Jason's house, playing video games, when this gorgeous guy walked in. Oh my God, he was hot. He was tall, with piercing blue eyes, and he was wearing a soldier's uniform. I mean, Jason was hot, but this guy was on another level. "Lucas!" yelled Jason, running over to hug the man. "Danny, this is my brother Lucas." I went over to meet him. Lucas held out his hand for me to shake, and I swear I felt like fainting when our fingers touched. Lucas told us he was home on leave from the army, and Jason said we should all hang out together. Jason asked if I minded because he didn't get to see Lucas much since he signed up. Did I mind? Are you kidding me? I got to hang out with a hot guy, and Jason wasn't going to get jealous. We had so much fun together in the couple weeks Lucas was home. We went to Six Flags, went out for dinner almost every night, and went to the movies. But the best times were when we were over at Jason's, and to be honest, some things got pretty steamy between me and Jason. Like, when the three of us watched TV, Lucas would kinda rub his thigh against mine or play with my hair without Jason noticing. This was wrong, but it made me want him so bad. On Lucas's last day of leave, we were all in the den when Jason remembered he was supposed to pick something up for his mom. He asked if I'd be okay staying with Lucas. Like he had to ask. Any excuse to spend time with his hot older brother. When Jason left to go to the store, Lucas came and sat right next to me. He was so close, our knees were touching. My heart started beating faster, and I bit my lip. I knew he wanted me, and all I wanted to do was kiss him. Thank God Lucas made up my mind for me. He leaned forward and kissed me passionately. Oh my God. I liked making out with Jason, but this was just, wow! With Jason, I feel like I'm with a boy, but Lucas, he was a man, and he really knew what he was doing. Jason and I had fooled around a lot, but we'd never gone all the way. I didn't feel ready, but at that moment, all I wanted was to be with Lucas. Things started getting hot and heavy, but then we heard Jason coming home. Quickly, I straightened out my clothes, and Lucas moved away from me. When Jason walked into the den, I thought he'd know straight away what we'd been doing, but he just smiled and walked over to kiss me. "Did you two have fun while I was gone?" he asked. Yeah, I said. When Lucas went back to the army, he started emailing and texting me. His messages were so romantic, and sometimes they were his hot nudes. He'd tell me all about what he wanted to do to me when he got back home again. I really felt like I was falling in love, you know? I always deleted his messages. It would break Jason's heart to know I was flirting with his brother, and I did love Jason. Anyway, Lucas was away in the army. It wasn't like I was having a real affair with him or anything, we were just talking. But then it happened. Lucas messaged me to say he was leaving the army and coming home for good. I felt such a mix of emotions. I was excited that Lucas was coming back, nervous about what would happen between us, and worried that Jason would suspect something. I didn't have to worry. Jason planned a surprise party for Lucas to welcome him home. There were loads of people there, and there was no chance for me to spend any time with Lucas. In fact, he barely spoke to me. If he hadn't sent all those sexy messages, I would think I'd imagined the time we kissed. And then it happened. Lucas yelled out for us all to be quiet because he had something to say. He held out his hand, and some girl I'd never seen before stepped forward to take it. "This is my fiancée, Sherry," said Lucas.
I'm Alice, a busy designer with a dull life, who lives alone.
"Fiancée, Sherry," said Lucas. "She's the reason I left the army, and I want to spend more time with her." Lucas was engaged? I felt like my heart had shattered into a million pieces. I'd spent so long dreaming about kissing Lucas again, and he was with someone else. I know. I shouldn't have been upset. I was with Jason, and we had a good relationship. It's just that I felt like I had something special with Lucas, and I wanted to see if it would go somewhere. Oh well, I guess it just wasn't meant to be. Now Lucas was home, I saw a lot more of him, but Sherry was with him most of the time. It wasn't the same as before. We would go out on double dates together. The more time I spent with Sherry, the more I wondered what Lucas saw in her. She wasn't all that pretty. She was flat-chested and really dumb. She laughed at everything Lucas said, even if it wasn't funny. Lucas should have been engaged to me. It would be so much better for him. But then it happened. I was over at Jason's when Lucas walked in. He told Jason their mom had asked him to drive her to the store because her car wouldn't start. Jason asked me if I wanted to go with them, but I said no. This was my chance to talk to Lucas and find out what was going on. When Jason left, at first it was a bit awkward. I didn't know what to say, but then Lucas said, "I'm sorry." He told me that he'd only proposed to Sherry because she told him she was pregnant, but then she lost the baby. He felt guilty and didn't want to hurt her, but he'd been thinking about me all the time. "I know you're still with Jason," he said, "but I want you." That was all I needed to hear. We fell into each other's arms, ripping our clothes off. That first time with Lucas was incredible. He really knew how to please a woman. By now, Jason and I had been sleeping together for a while, but he wasn't great in bed. Lucas had experience, and it showed. After that, Lucas and I spent every moment we could together. I couldn't get enough of him. His body was amazing. So toned and buff after all his time in the army. I was head over heels in love. But then I missed my period. I knew it wasn't Jason's baby because we always used protection, but Lucas and I weren't as careful. When I told Lucas, he was so sweet. He said he'd leave Sherry and we'd get married. He didn't want his baby to grow up without him. The worst part was telling Jason. I still cared about him, and he was my baby's uncle after all. Jason was devastated. I'd never seen a man cry before. I felt so uncomfortable. "I hope he cheats on you one day," he said. Lucas and I got married at the courthouse. It was only a small ceremony. Jason wouldn't come, and neither would his parents, because they didn't approve of me running off with Lucas. My parents thought I was too young to get married and have a baby, so they didn't come either. I didn't care. Lucas and I were going to be together forever. But it wasn't long before things changed. I put on a lot of weight while I was pregnant. Lucas started making comments about how fat I was. Whenever I ate anything that wasn't a salad, he'd make snarky comments or snort like a pig. When our daughter, Mia, was born, I thought things would go back to how they were, but Lucas didn't want to spend any time with her, and as for changing diapers, forget it. I was really depressed, so I started to comfort eat, which made things even worse. Lucas threatened to leave me if I didn't lose weight, but his negative comments only made me eat more, and I ended up gaining 100 pounds. The more he called me names, the more I ate. I hated the way I looked, but I couldn't stop eating. It was the only thing that made me happy. After he left the army, Lucas couldn't get a good job, so he had to work as a barista to pay the bills. He started spending more and more time at work. He said he was getting overtime to pay for the baby, but whenever I asked him for money to buy formula, he said he didn't have any. I started to suspect he was having an affair, so I took Mia and waited outside his work one day. Sure enough, when he left the coffee shop, he was holding hands with another woman. They kissed before getting into his car and driving off. I raced home and started packing things for me and Mia. There was no way I was going to stay with someone who was cheating on me. When Lucas came home, my bags were in the hallway. "What's going on?" he asked. "I know you're seeing someone else," I yelled. "I'm leaving, and I'm taking Mia with me." Lucas begged me to stay. He promised he'd break up with the other woman and said he loved me more than ever. He took me to bed. We fell asleep in each other's arms, but when I woke up, I was alone. Lucas had left, and he'd taken Mia with him. He left me a note which said, "There's no way I'm letting my daughter grow up with a fat pig for a mother." I had to go to court to get my daughter back, but I couldn't afford a lawyer. Lucas's family paid for a lawyer for him, and he said I was a bad mother who was a danger to our daughter. He won full custody. I know some people think I deserve it for cheating on Jason with his brother, but I've learned my lesson. I'll never cheat on anyone ever again. Now, I'm working 2 jobs to save enough money to hire a lawyer. I won't rest until I have my daughter back. And if you liked this story, remember to like, comment, and share for more